The crystal catacombs. The crystalline formations jutted from the cavern walls like frozen screams, their translucent surfaces pulsing with an ethereal blue radiance that seemed to breathe with malevolent life. Samus Aran's power suit registered the ambient energy readings as she descended deeper into the ancient Chozo burial grounds, her visor casting amber light across the geometric patterns that decorated these sacred halls. Each footstep echoed through the sepulchral chambers with the weight of desecration. The crystal formations grew more elaborate as she progressed, transforming from simple geometric shapes into intricate sculptures that defied comprehension, twisted spires that seemed to spiral through dimensions beyond the visible spectrum, their surfaces reflecting not her armored form, but shadows of things that had never been. Warning, phazon contamination detected, her suit's AI announced in its characteristic monotone. Recommend immediate extraction. Samus silenced the warning with a thought. She had tracked the phazon signature here for a reason. The corruption had spread from the meteor impact site 3 sectors away, and its tendrils had somehow penetrated these ancient catacombs, a place that should have been sealed beyond the reach of any earthly contamination. The deeper chambers opened before her like the throat of some primordial beast. Here, the crystal formations had grown so gom-legs that they seemed to twist reality itself, creating optical illusions that made her question the fundamental nature of space and geometry. Surfaces that should have been flat curved impossibly, while straight lines bent back upon themselves in ways that hurt to perceive. It was then that she felt it, a presence pressing against the edges of her consciousness like cold fingers probing the boundaries of her mind. "You should not have come here, child of Terra." The voice resonated not through her audio receptors, but directly into her thoughts, carrying with it the weight of eons and the bitter taste of ancient grief. Samus raised her arm cannon, scanning the chamber for the source, but the crystalline reflections created a maze of false targets and phantom movements. "Show yourself," she commanded, her own voice sounding small and mortal in the vast chamber. "I am already shown. I am the crystal. I am the light. I am the guardian of the dead who will not rest." The largest crystal formation at the chamber's heart began to shift and flow like liquid mercury, frozen in time. As Samus watched, transfixed despite herself, the translucent mass reformed itself into a vaguely humanoid shape, tall, impossibly thin, with features that seemed to shift between avian and serpentine depending on the angle of observation. The Chozo sentinel stood before her, its form a corruption of the noble bird-like being she had known in life. But this was something else entirely. A consciousness that had been twisted by millennia of exposure to the phazon's malignant influence, transformed into something that existed in the liminal space between thought and substance. "You are not like the others who built this place," Samus observed, keeping her weapon trained on the crystalline entity. "The Chozo I knew were wise, peaceful. You're something else, Peace." The sentinel's mental voice carried the sound of breaking glass. "Peace is the luxury of the living. I am the accumulated anguish of 10,000 years. The crystallized sorrow of a race that sought transcendence and found only endless watching. Do you know what it means to guard the dead, child of Terra? To stand vigil over the bones of your creators for millennia while your mind slowly fragments into obsidian shards." The creature moved with fluid grace, its crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns that hurt to follow. Each step it took seemed to bend the very air around it, creating distortions that made Samus's targeting systems malfunction. "The phazon changed you," she said, backing toward the chamber's entrance. "It corrupted whatever you once were." "Changed?" The sentinel's laugh was the sound of wind through empty tombs. "No, child of Terra. The phazon simply revealed what I had always been becoming. Isolation is its own corruption. Duty is its own poison. I have been dying by degrees for so long that death itself has become merely another form of existence." Without warning, the entity struck, not with physical force, but with pure psychic energy that slammed into Samus's consciousness like a tidal wave of alien emotion. She staggered, her suit systems flickering as foreign thoughts invaded her mind, images of the Chozo in their final days, watching their civilization crumble as they uploaded their consciousnesses into crystal matrices, hoping to achieve immortality but finding only endless wakeful nightmares. "Get out of my head," Samus fired her plasma beam, the energy bolt striking the sentinel's crystalline form and shattering it into 1,000 fragments, only to watch in horror as the pieces reformed instantly, the creature's laughter echoing through dimensions she couldn't name. "Your mind is strong, child of Terra, but strength is meaningless against the weight of eternity. Let me show you what I have seen. Let me share with you the visions that have been my only companions in this crystal hell." The chamber around them began to shift and flow, the walls becoming transparent, revealing the vast network of burial chambers that extended throughout the planetoid's core. In each crystal sarcophagus lay the preserved remains of ancient Chozo, their consciousness uploaded into the crystalline matrix that connected them all in an eternal, silent communion. But something had gone wrong with their great work. The Phazon corruption had turned their shared consciousness into a feedback loop of madness and despair, each mind reflecting the other's anguish, until it became an echo chamber of suffering that grew stronger with each passing century. "They're all still alive," Samus whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "All of them. Trapped in there, aware, unable to die. Now you begin to understand," the Sentinel said, its form becoming more solid, more threatening. "And now you will join them. Your consciousness will become part of our eternal vigil, your thoughts added to our crystalline symphony of sorrow." The creature's psychic assault intensified, and Samus felt her own thoughts beginning to blur at the edges. The temptation was there. To let go, to surrender to the alien peace of dissolution, to become part of something larger than herself. But she had faced mental invasion before, had learned to build walls around her core identity during her encounters with other psychic entities. "No," she said firmly, focusing her will into a single, unbreakable point of defiance. "I won't become part of your collection." She activated her suit's Phazon enhancement systems, a dangerous gambit that flooded her armor with controlled doses of the same corruption that had twisted the Sentinel. The risk was enormous. Too much exposure would kill her, but the enhanced energy output might be enough to overload the creature's crystalline matrix. The Sentinel recoiled as waves of corrupted energy washed over it. "Impossible. You risk everything for nothing. Why do you fight when surrender would bring such sweet peace?" "Because," Samus replied, charging her arm cannon with every ounce of Phazon-enhanced energy she could safely channel. "Some things are worth fighting for, even if the fight seems hopeless." The resulting explosion shattered not just the Sentinel's physical form, but the entire crystalline network that had sustained the corrupted consciousness for millennia. The chamber filled with the sound of breaking glass as 10,000 crystal sarcophagi cracked simultaneously, releasing the trapped minds of the ancient Chozo into whatever lay beyond. As the echoes faded, Samus heard something she had not expected: gratitude. The voices of the freed consciousness whispered through her mind one final time before fading into silence. "Thank you, child of Terra. You have given us what we could not give ourselves," an ending. Alone in the shattered chamber, surrounded by the remains of crystalline beauty that had become a crystalline prison, Samus Aran stood in the sudden profound silence. The Phazon readings were dropping rapidly as the corruption lost its anchor in this reality, and soon this place would be nothing more than empty stone and broken crystal. She had come here seeking to contain a threat, but instead had become an instrument of mercy. Sometimes, she reflected as she began her ascent to the surface, the greatest victory was not in defeating an enemy, but in setting them free. The crystal catacombs would crumble in her wake, their secrets buried forever beneath tons of stone and silence. But somewhere in the space between thought and dream, the ancient Chozo had finally found their peace, not in the eternal vigil they had chosen, but in the blessed darkness of a rest long overdue. Above her, distant stars waited in the void, and Samus Aran walked toward them, carrying with her the weight of another world's sorrow transformed into something that might eventually become wisdom.